There's important matches and there's very important games, and most Stoke supporters will think the game at the Villa on Saturday is going to be a crucial game. What are your thoughts on how we set up for that?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, firstly, it's our next game. I know it's always a bit cliche for every manager, but you know, we don't tend to look at games and think one's more important than the other. Although you always try to appreciate the significance to the fans, you know, because that's important. I think looking at Villa's squad and another team like ourselves that have been in the Premier League, not quite as recently as us, but previously. Got a squad full of quality, and of course a new manager coming in trying to improve their results and getting them into the same sort of positions as we're trying. So I expect it to be a good game. I expect it to be two good teams trying to come out on top, and the fact that we're away from home, although with our away record I don't think it's as much of an issue, but with our recent record on our away form, you know, we should go into it with a lot of confidence. But we also know the threats that they'll pose, and we also know any game like that you're going to have to play really, really well to get anything out of the game. It's as simple as that, but we'll go there full of belief that we can achieve a result.
You talk about the away form being really good. It's been outstanding, but also a word maybe for the fans. We've sold out of tickets for the Villa game coming up to Christmas. It's an expensive time of year. Their backing will be really important, won't it, on Saturday?
Absolutely. Listen, there's not many Championship clubs that will be going away this weekend with, you know, something close to 3,000 fans travelling with the team. You know, so you know, I think that's massively important for us. I think all the fans have supported the team this season. Listen, we've had some games where they've not always been, you know, liked everything they've seen, and we'd all feel the same way about that. But they've seen a team put a lot of effort in. They've seen a team trying to do the right things and go in the right direction. And certainly away from home, you always hear those fans a little bit more because they're a minority, you know. So we're going to need them to get behind the team again, and hopefully we'll try to repay their faith and their support by trying to get a result, you know. But I really appreciate the fact that they're travelling, like you say, at such a difficult period of the year.
After the Ipswich game, you mentioned that some of our players looked leggy and that you were going to have a chat about things. How's training gone this week?
Yeah, it's gone fine. I didn't want to get into too much detail about it. I didn't want it to sound like an excuse, of course, but there was, we did one session last week where some of the players were complaining that, you know, they felt tight, their hamstrings felt tight and the quads felt tight. And I think when you see so many perform with a slight lack of energy or slight lack of sharpness, you always realise there's probably a reason behind it. You know, I don't think Joe Allen, Sam Clucas and Woodsy have played with that sort of, I wouldn't say, they certainly weren't poor, but they weren't as vibrant as they usually are. And when you see quite a few players doing that, you realise there's a reason. So we've looked at that. It's all about you always trying to learn. We certainly won't have that same issue this weekend. We certainly can't afford that same issue this weekend. But yeah, I mean, fortunately for us, we won the game. I mean, you probably wouldn't have known it afterwards at times, but we actually won the game. We got a clean sheet, and sometimes, you know, we can't be too picky how we win them. We've played well in other games this season and not won. We played really well and drawn games. You know, we played poorly and we won the game and kept a clean sheet. So I'm pretty pleased about that.
And how are we looking injury-wise? Tom Ince, she said, was struggling a little bit with soreness last time. How is everybody at the moment?
Yeah, to be fair to Ince, because the players slightly modified the week, because obviously had their Christmas celebrations, if you like, at the weekend, which I have to add that quite a lot of other Championship sides in the division also had their celebrations this weekend, so it wasn't just us. I'm never too sure about it really, but it builds camaraderie, and it's one night of the year. So we didn't train Monday, but we trained very, very hard yesterday and today, which is always what we do anyway most weeks. And Tom Ince got through it fine, so he's been a little bit sore, but I think any sort of injury of that nature, when you've played 3 games in a week, I was actually amazed that he got through those 3 games in the first place, and then to get through the last game also fine, and obviously he's in good scoring form, but he's been okay, so there's certainly no injury worry with Tom now. Tom Edwards missed out at the weekend for injury, just felt a problem in his sort of groin, hamstring, sort of quad in the inside of his leg. You know, I'm not particularly specific there because of my lack of medical knowledge, but I know he had a problem, and because of the club developed player rule, of course, that then gives you a little bit of an issue on the bench. So we brought Lass in, who we felt has done really well in recent games and deserved a place on the bench, even though it left us a little bit unbalanced in some ways. But Tom trained this morning, so hopefully if Tom's got through it okay, he looked okay. So and yeah, no injuries.
And that, of course, will give you another good selection headache. But we're moving into an extremely busy time of the year now. The Christmas New Year period is always extremely busy. You're going to have to use probably the full squad, aren't you, if things pan out as we expect?
Yeah, I think so. I think, you know, we naturally, at this stage of the season, you naturally get a feel for what's your sort of best 14 or 15, if you like. You know, I think that's any side's going to do exactly the same. But what I would say is, whenever players have come into the team, they've contributed, and they have to be ready to contribute once more. One big thing that I think probably doesn't get mentioned because you don't see it really, but I have to say the conduct of the players not in the side regularly, you know, has been exemplary. You know, the likes of Crouchy, the likes of Darren Fletcher, you know, Bojan, people like that. Mam Diouf, you know, they've actually conducted themselves brilliantly. Charlie Adam, you know, been superb around the group, and that's also what you need. You know, you're going to have players unhappy because they're not playing at this time of the year, because you're sort of 20 games into the season. It's not 3 or 4 games into the season. You've got the January window coming up, but what I would say is they're all trained really well and they've all been ready, and in some ways that's as important as the results, because it's not just about the 11 on the pitch or the 14, 15 that are playing regularly. It's about everybody. You seem to
have got the team spirit back, and that's all credit to you and your staff. But it's inevitable that coming to the January transfer window, and dare I say, Bojan's not been in the squad for a couple of matches, a lot of the fans are beginning to wonder if he will be out of the door. Do you want to say anything about that?
No, I think it's unfair to make individual comment. I think what's probably the most sensible thing to say is that, you know, and I've been a professional footballer, so I can speak from first-hand experience, that if you're not playing, I mean, I've been fortunate I didn't have that too often in my career, but if you're not playing regular football, you know, most players, that's what you do. That's what you should want to do. I know there's various factors that can make it, you know, more desperate to go and play or less desperate to play, but ultimately you want players that want to play football, so you can't offer everybody that unless you'd rotate the squad so much that, you know, you just change the team every 2 or 3 games and put 5 or 6 players in and just keep moving it round, and that's not really the best thing to do. So the reality is there's going to be players who want to play football, and if that's the situation, we have to look at sensible decisions in January. But there'll probably be 5 or 6 of those players as we speak, but that doesn't mean to say they're not ready to give to the cause of Stoke City. You know, it doesn't mean to say if they're not picked that they won't give everything. What it means is I haven't played them that regularly, and some of those will be getting a little bit edgy, and that's understandably so. So we'll get that problem in January, and I think every other club up and down the country will have exactly the same problem.
And would you be happy with people knocking on your door? Presumably the good professionals are knocking on your door and saying, give us a chance.
Yeah, I've not had too many knocking on my door, in fairness, but I always work the same policy. If anyone's got a problem, some managers don't particularly appreciate players knocking on asking why they're not in the team. I've never had a problem with that, you know. I've always said the same. If I'd rather talk face to face about it, I'd rather deal with it in person, but I've not really had anyone. I think you get that less and less nowadays. Usually their agents ringing your chief exec or something like that rather than the players coming in. But we got a good bunch, and you know, I'll certainly have some conversations before January. And again, I couldn't honestly sit here now and saying there's any 1 player or 2 players that I am absolutely desperate not to be here in January. What I would say is it's a natural process that some of those will want to go and earn the money elsewhere, you know, and that's to be expected.
And Saido Berahino has said that he's looking to clearly get some more goals. He's been very impressive with his work rate and his keeping hold of the ball. You could do with a few more goals from him, Crouch and Afobe, couldn't you?
Yeah, I think that that number 9. I know Saido's not played. You know, I know Saido's not played up front as much, and you can argue Crouch has not had too many starts. So I think it'd be unfair to really sort of say Crouchy's not scored goals, but I certainly think between Side and Bennick at the moment, you know, we need more goals. I think the other players have, I mean, they've contributed in their performances, but in terms of the goals, I think, you know, the midfielders recently have been a lot more influential in that sense. The wide players are starting to become more influential in terms of those goal scoring positions. But what we really want is we want one of those players to, I mean, it's a scrap, isn't it? It's a scrap for them to see who can get that shirt, and I have no preference over who gets it. But what you want is someone to perform so well and score goals and take their chances that they end up being an automatic pick. So I think what would be fair to say is that that position's still been open in terms of somebody really stamping their authority on that. And the way to stamp your authority as a striker is not just your all-round performance, it's scoring goals to win games, you know, and it's as simple as that.
You've said maybe 4 or 5 will be looking to move or get loans in January. Would you consider bringing anybody in? I know you've already said it's a difficult time of year, but presumably you might like a striker?
Well, I think, I mean, I won't necessarily echo your presumption, but I think what you're always trying to do is you're looking at areas where you might like to strengthen if the right players available or the right type of players available. It's not always, I think the easiest thing at this time, historically from my experiences, it's easy to bring someone in who goes straight into the team. When your team's improving its results and you know, I feel that improvement can continue for a while further, you've got to debate whether you upset the balance, you know, and you end up with 2 or 3 players further and not playing to add to the group you've already got, or you make some other sensible decisions, you know. And I think at the moment it's going to depend on which players are desperate to leave and we choose to leave for the right reasons. It's going to depend on what players are available. But certainly I think we'll look at seeing if we can strengthen in maybe only 1 or 2 areas really. I don't think there's any need to strengthen in 4 or 5 areas. I think we've spent a lot of money in the summer and we're still settling down to a certain degree. So we'll continue to look at that, you know. I've tried to strengthen before in January, and it's actually quite a difficult time to do it, because what you don't want to do is bring 2 or 3 players in and find you've got a month of them finding their feet and actually results suffer. So it's certainly a tough balancing act in this window, I believe.
Thank you, good luck.
No worries. Thank you.